Perfect. So now, hi everyone. Welcome to our fourth edition of Women in Engineering Day. My name is Mariam van der Helm, and I'm the host of this event. Good to have you all here, and please make sure you are muted. But I think everyone is already muted here. And what's strange is about this event is that sometimes people say, "Hey, why this is not a day full of events? So why do you call it Women in Engineering Day? It's just only 1 hour." Well, in life we should, I think, celebrate every day, right? So why not celebrate the whole day as a Woman in Engineering Day? That's how, at least I personally think. And well, the official day of International Women Engineering Day is on June 23rd, but it's okay to have these kind of days more often. So welcome again to this to be here with us. There will be before we start an time for Q&A at the end, where you have the opportunity to ask our speakers your questions. But please feel free to ask your questions already in the chat so you don't forget them. And last but not least, please know that this session is being recorded and will be shared afterwards on our YouTube channel. As ING, we like to share the knowledge we gain on our journey with the tech community. So this time we do this in collaboration with Microsoft. Our two speakers, Justina from ING Tech Poland and Jennifer from Microsoft, will share their journeys with you in a bit. Each talk will take around 20 to 25 minutes. And yeah, now I would like to introduce to you our first speaker, who is Justina from ING Tech Poland, as I mentioned. Justina, welcome. And everyone, she has a message. So girls, you have the power. That's what she's saying. And I think this is an amazing message we want to hear more about. So the floor is yours, Justina.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. Yes. Okay, Mariam, please confirm.
Yes, it looks great.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to have this opportunity today to take a part in this event. I hope my presentation, my personal story will be interesting for you. And I'm sending this presentation to everyone, but especially for women working in IT and those who are just thinking about it. At the beginning, I have one question for all of you. Do you want to today hear a story about how not to be a perfect one and how I learned to choose between I have to and I can, I want? If so, please, I invite you to listen to my own personal journey. Before I start, I would like to show you those two pictures. There is some connection between them. I hope you are curious about it, but you have to wait to the end of this presentation where I will explain that, I promise. So stay tuned. Let's start. My name is Justyna. I am from ING Tech Poland in Katowice. I've been working here for almost 10 years and I really love being a part of the Orange team, of the Lion team. I think I can say that I'm a woman in IT world, which is mostly male. I have 6.5 years old daughter and 3 cats. Before ING, I worked in several companies as a web designer and graphic designer, but it was only here that I found my place. I've started in ING as an IT analyst, but I always wanted to be closer to development. And as soon as I get the opportunity, I changed the team and started working with Software House here in ING as a web designer. The projects were different, really, more difficult and easier. I was learning new things, getting to know the front end, UX, UI skills, developing myself. And then 2015 has come and my life changed 180 80 degrees, and I've started the most beautiful and difficult project in my life. I become a mother. Of course, it didn't happen suddenly. I was preparing for that all. When I returned from my maternity leave after almost a year break, it was not easy, really. A lot has changed. You know, new people, new projects, new technologies, new way of working, bigger company. I can say at the beginning I was lost and felt like a new employee. I was also constantly worried about how my daughter is doing, whether she misses, if everything is okay when I'm at work. It wasn't easy for me at all. I think probably moms after maternity leave know what I'm talking about. But after some time, I got used, felt more comfortable and more confident doing my job. And of course, knowing that my daughter has a great time with her babysitter, I started to fulfill myself at work anew, learn new things, enter new projects, and I become also a Scrum Master in my team. Unexpectedly, in the middle of 2017, when my daughter was 1.5 years old, I got the proposal to become a chapter lead, a manager here in ING. What do you think? How did I react? I should be happy, right? Because it was great proposition. It was promotion, right? To be honest, I was horrified. Really, I still remember the panic and the rapid heartbeat. Mm, there was so many thoughts and questions in my head at the same time. You know, how can I handle it? Am I good enough for this position? Because, I have a small child. I have to take sick leave from time to time, take care of my daughter, leave work early, go to kindergarten ceremonies. Mm, Honestly, even since my daughter was born, working overtime has been a problem for me. Before it was normal. I struggled with my thoughts for a while, stressing that it was not for me. I was afraid that I would not be able to deal with this all. And from the other hand, I wasn't sure if I would prove myself in this new role. Yes, I love people, really. I was always responsible for organizing many things. I tried to integrate the team, but still, I did not have any managerial preparation. Fortunately, reflection came, and also my husband helped me with this dilemmas. I realized that I'm not alone with this all. I'm lucky that I don't run the house and don't look after my child alone. My husband has also a managerial position, and he knew it was a great opportunity for me to develop. I can count on support both at home and at work. Thanks to the people I work with, thanks to my supervisor. So I've decided to enter a new role, and it was over 4 years ago. It was my own choice, and I know it was the good one. I have no regrets, even though it's not always easy. Today, when I try to wonder where this panic and this hesitation came from, I think I know. I always thought I had to be the best at everything. Firstly at school, later at work. When I became a mother, really, I was crazy about it for a while. At work, I also tried to give a lot. It was hard for me to eliminate myself from my professional life, also during maternity leave. Stupid, right? I thought that I would lose something irreversibly, that I would miss my chance, or someone would take my place. Of course, it turned out to be unfounded. Because when I go back to work, it was still waiting for me. And to be honest, there was even more of it than before I left. And what's more, I took advantage of an opportunity that appeared. I realized that if I didn't try, I would never know what it's like. Besides, it was an occasion that didn't come up often. There was also the safe awareness in the back of my head that I could always go back to the previous job position. I think that that is a great opportunity which ING gives to his employees. Today, when I talk with my female colleagues at work, I often see hesitation. Not only before making a decision about motherhood, but also before reaching for more. Some of the women around me think that they are weaker at work than their male colleagues, that their work is less recognized, they learn slower, they cope with problems harder. Sincerely, this scares me a lot because, in my opinion, nothing what I hear reflected in reality. I think that these are some beliefs that are born deep inside and don't want to go away. I think because of these beliefs, they don't even want to take on challenges. The fact is that we hear more about successes of men. I see that they believe in themselves more, that they are less concerned about their shortcomings. Sometimes it happens that women with the same knowledge have less self-confidence. It scares me, you know? For me, this is like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think that their beliefs affect how they are perceived. Often thinking that in some day they will want to become mothers, they withdraw much earlier, don't take up challenges, even though there is still room for it. Of course, I know that this is not a standard and I don't want to generalize. I have to say that I would be ignorant if I said that I don't have such thoughts myself sometimes. Sometimes I go to a meeting where I don't understand what's going on. I can't technically follow. However, I stopped showing it. I'm not afraid to ask. And most of all, I don't let it prove my self-esteem. I also try not to blame myself. I find my strengths and highlight them. You know, on previous job position, when I was web designer, I was technically stronger. That's obvious. My friends ask me for help often. But today, I do other things. I have developed on other levels. I help people in a different way. I believe it's also important. Sometimes my colleagues ask me how I manage to reconcile being a mother with being a manager. Well, it's not easy. But I have the support of my husband, as I said before, understanding boss, and a great team of people around me here in ING. I don't go crazy. I'm looking for this balance and try not to say I have to do something, you know. I made my own priorities. Work is really important for me, you know, because it gives me this energy boost. It gives me a sense of personal development. But my personal life will be always the most important for me. I promised to myself not to leave the academic kindergarten of my child, her important moments, because this is something what is also important for me. And of course, calendar is always adaptable. And to be honest, I have to say, I always cry when I see those little angels singing Christmas carols. Believe me, it's the best. I try to find the time to myself, for myself and for my needs, because, you know, only thanks to this, I can find this balance and endure my more difficult moments. And this happens, believe me, sometimes quite often, especially in the face of rebellion of my 6.5 years old daughter. I still remember, I still with fear remember the few months of working alone at home with my daughter during the pandemic period, when she constantly interrupted me during my meetings, business meetings, and 100 times a day I heard, "Mom, I'm bored." It was not easy, really. What's also important, I try to prevent my beliefs, especially the negative ones, from defining my actions, my perception of myself. Sorry. Sounds easy, right? And hassle-free. It's not like that. Quite often, I feel overwhelmed and with guilt that I could do more, both at work and at home. I feel guilty when I have to go on a business trip or when, after a hard day, instead of playing with my daughter or doing something creative, I just play her a cartoon and vegetate next to her in the front of TV. But does that mean I'm not fit for it? No. I believe it means only I have bad days like all of us. Today, women have a choice that they didn't have before. Of course, I know that not everywhere in the world, but I am talking about my nearest environment. We can decide what school we want to graduate, what studies go to, what job to take. So, what's the reason that women often graduate university and don't take up a job, or if they do, most often they are in lower position than their male colleagues? I've been wondering about it for a while, and one thing comes to my mind. What exactly? Well, we often hear that IT is a men's world, right? We hear that there is no place for women in IT, that they are not fit for it. It happens that I hear it from my female colleagues, really. I don't believe it. I believe if women want to work in IT, they will be, and will be there good at it, and will be the best one. I have different conclusion. Women often choose. They choose between professional development, professional success, and personal life. Often this choice means for them that when choosing one, they have to give up to the other. They don't want to or can't reconcile one with the other. They don't reach for more. Does it have to be this way? I believe no. Of course, I have friends who decide not to work. I have friends who choose not to become a mother. This is okay because it's their own choices and they feel good about them. That's important, really. On the beginning of this year, on the occasion on Women's Day, because here in Poland we have Women's Day in March, I've published an article on a similar topic. It was not easy for me to share my personal experiences and thoughts. I was stressed, and that also applied to this presentation. After the article was published, many girls from my company contacted me and thanked me for it. Then I felt that it was worth it and it was easier for me to decide on this presentation. Because, when you're aware that you can help at least one person, it's definitely worth it. So, this is my message today for all of you. We have a choice. You have a choice. So, please remember, I think every decision is good as long as it's conscious and compatible with us and our needs. What's important is that being a mother doesn't mean the end of the world. Just a professional career doesn't mean that we will never find free time for ourselves, our need, our private life. It's important that our work should be satisfactory, full of challenges, because only then we have a motivator to develop and fulfill both professionally and privately. We have a choice, and let's choose the way that we will never regret anything. At the beginning, I promised you to explain the connection between those two pictures. So, I'm sure that everyone knows Elsa from Frozen movie, right? My child loved this movie and watched it many times. And of course, I watched it with her. So, funny fact is that the theme song from the movie in Polish language has a completely different translation, completely different meaning. Instead of let it go, in the chorus we hear I've got this power. So on the left side is my picture from my childhood. Today, my daughter knows she has the power and she can be whoever she wants to be. I was the same in her age. Then I forgot about it for a while, but now I remember and I believe it. And this is what I want to say today for all women. So, mom, partner, programmer, admin, or manager, remember you've got a choice and you've got the power. So, it was my Elsa story. I wish you find your own. And remember, be like Elsa. Thank you and enjoy the second presentation of Jennifer.
Wow, Justina, thank you so much. Thank you. You have had some challenges in your journey, and love to hear them all. But I really truly respect your determination. You are I believe, a great example for your daughter, Justina. So thank you so much for. Yes, definitely, definitely, and thank you so much for your for sharing your inspiring story about your journey. Thanks. So if you have any questions for Justina at the moment, please ask them here in the chat so you won't forget them. And right after the second talk, we will pick them up. And now I'm about to announce our second speaker, which is Jennifer. Welcome, Jennifer. Good to see you.
Good to be here.
Yeah, perfect. And Jennifer is working for Microsoft, and we are very happy to have as our guest here. So, and you will be sharing, Jennifer, your story about the non-traditional journey to tech. So, very curious about this. And tell us more, Jennifer. The floor is yours.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thanks everyone for joining on this Thursday afternoon near the holiday break for many people. So as Miriam said, I work at Microsoft. I am a program manager on the Microsoft Endpoint Manager Customer Acceleration Team, which is a lot of words to say. I work on our MDM product, or mobile device management product, as an engineer who works with customers. We have long job titles at my company, and I'll tell you a little bit more about my day to day and how I got there as we move through the conversation. I love interaction. We'll do questions at the end, but feel free to use those fun little Teams reactions or throw things in the chat, and to connect with me on LinkedIn. And I've put my profile up here in the slide as well. All right, so I'm going to chat through today a little bit about who I am and how I got here in tech, which is non-linear at best. It's a bit of an unusual journey, but what I want to share with you is how I looked at my journey and previous career experience and life experiences to actually really craft a career in tech for me and be really fortunate to find a company and a team and group of people who can see those strengths, even though I haven't been working in the field since the moment I left school. So I want to talk a little bit about some lessons I've learned about making career transitions that I hope will be helpful, some frameworks I use, and some of the things I've learned that I find to be encouraging to other women in tech. And I'm going to slightly move my headset because I can hear my own breath there. So hopefully that's a bit better. All right, so I usually just tell people now that I live in Amsterdam, which is where I'm based, that I'm from New York City. But the reality is I was born in the middle of nowhere in the United States, so in a small town in a state called Iowa. And right after university, I moved to New York City with a degree in public relations and Spanish language. And I took a job in the fashion industry. So if you've seen the film The Devil Wears Prada, which is now quite an old film, that was kind of me. I was the very unfashionable girl from the middle of the country who didn't understand the industry, who studied journalism, but yet ended up working in the field. I love this photograph, which is actually with a friend's grandmother. and of course, a good New York City taxi. I lived in New York for 14 years, and throughout my journey there, I started in fashion, but also doing communications work. Then I moved to a similar role in a very different context, doing communications at a law school or law faculty of a university. And then while I was there, I made the decision to study counseling psychology. I had always been passionate about people, and I'd always found that people wanted to talk to me and tell their story. And so I did this degree while I was still working full time, and then practiced as a therapist for a couple of years. And then I was working for a nonprofit. Their financial situation changed a little in the global financial crisis. So then I found myself, as a result of a difficult job situation, freelancing. And then I ended up in tech. So I did a mixture of freelance, basically of all of the things that I had done, which included lots of writing, communications, consulting, and a friend basically in the industry asked me to help them build an IT training company, which I did. And I'll talk a little bit more about how I took that opportunity that was a bit random and then positioned that into a career in tech, and how I learned about everything throughout my journey. And I could use those skills and experiences to be able to keep growing in this field, which I found that I loved. So after that, I moved to the Netherlands in 2015, really just for a new adventure after all those years in New York. And I continued to grow the business. I started doing an IT training. So I moved here with my own business and had clients all over the world and was training them on Microsoft products. I was able to create a great life here that balanced out lots of time with friends and community, but also gave me the opportunity to learn and explore a new culture. And then after about 2 years of living here and working in my own business, which I did in total for 8 years, I got recruited by Microsoft. And my initial response to that moment was, are they sure? Based on my background, based on the fact I've done a lot of different things. Thanks, Mo. But yeah, so when we started to look at my journey and at some of the skills I had developed throughout my various careers, that gave me the opportunity to start in a technical sales role and then move into using those same skills of interacting with customers, of working with technology, and really with solving problems, which I now do in our engineering product group. So my job primarily is listening to customers, advising them on strategy, and using all of that information to make our product better. So I make sure that we have the big picture as we move forward as a security-based project, and that we're not just lost in the tiny details. I know most of you are in the engineering field. We have 3 types of engineering roles on our product: customer experience engineers like me, who gain insights and help craft together with our teams the future of the product. We have the feature engineers who look after a very specific portion of each of the product overall, and then our software engineers who code it and build it and make it all happen. All right, so with that unusual structure that I've come through in my career, I want to talk a little bit about why that actually does feel like a pretty logical path to me, and how all of these different parts of my journey have actually really come together. And part of the reason I like sharing this is that I think lots of us have different parts of our journey and different steps that we go through, and some of them might seem like they might even disqualify us from the next job. Maybe you're listening today and you're thinking of doing something in a different industry in your field, or something different, going more technical, less technical. And I want to share with you some of the questions I ask myself when I look at a new role, and some of the exercises I've used to learn about my own journey, but then communicate it to other people so I can help them understand that I am the right person for the job, and that I can ultimately achieve what we need to do. All right, so and when we're thinking about this journey, when you're planning your next move, there's 5 questions I always ask myself. And to me, this is almost a maybe twice a year appointment you need to make with yourself to think through these questions and to be able to answer them really clearly if you're given the opportunity to talk to somebody who might be the key to the next step in your career. So, first of all, what are you good at? And I'll talk about some strategies for communicating that in the most effective way, especially if you're looking at a non-traditional career. The next one is where do you thrive? So for me, there's certain cultural things that are really important to me. So for example, I live as a expat in the Netherlands. I'm American. I'm from one of the biggest cities and most international cities in the world. So I know that I probably wouldn't be happy in a small town working with only Dutch colleagues and advising small businesses because I would miss the international aspect that's so much a part of me. I also really thrive with flexibility and the fact that I can engage in lots of different ways within my community. So thinking through some of those core topics and environmental things about where you thrive is really valuable as well. The third question I think through is what my values are. And this can look a lot of different ways. Some things that were really important to me when I was considering my next step in my business, which ended up being to shut it down and work for Microsoft, which was a surprise, is that I wanted to make sure that I was actually contributing to the women in tech community. It was really important for me to be in a challenging job because I don't want to get bored. I like having new things. So when I had that experience and that conversation with myself that I knew I wanted to be giving back to the women in tech community, then when Microsoft called, I could ask them questions like, well, what are you guys doing for diversity and inclusion? And how could I be involved if I came to work for you? And that was actually something that was really valuable to me, as I felt like working for a company might actually give me more opportunity to contribute to others and support them in their journey than I might get just on my own. And then the next two there, what do you love? And the important opposite question, what do you hate? I love working with people. I hate fixing broken stuff. Like I could never be a support engineer, but I love creating new complicated solutions to really intense problems. So knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at and what you like and what you don't like. Here's some principles I use to kind of think about how I answer and ask myself these questions. First of all, a lot of times people will tend to think, okay, what's the next role? What's the next job? I try to really answer and ask these questions before there's a new job coming up. Instead, I try to really think about them before I'm going to make a move. And part of that is because maybe I actually find stuff within my current role that works really well for me. And when I do this exercise of thinking about what's most important to me, I realize that I can actually achieve that where I'm at. But also knowing this in advance means I can be very quick to accept or deny the next opportunity when it comes up. So I knew all these things were important to me. I'd spent time knowing I wanted an international role. I wanted to be strategic. So when my current role in engineering came up, it didn't take me any time at all to not only apply for it, but also explain to the manager why it was a perfect fit for me. The other big suggestion I would give you as you go through this process of thinking through what do you love, what are you good at, all of these questions, is translate experiences into themes. So you might be sitting here thinking, my CV is that I'm, I know Python or whatever, the case may be, or I have, deep cybersecurity experience. But what is the theme beyond that? So, if I look at my very non-traditional career, I was a journalist and a therapist, worked in public relations, but in all of those, there were some key themes. I can communicate. I'm good with people, which is important in the type of engineering role that I have. And I know how to ask really good questions. And as both a journalist and a therapist, you also get comfortable stopping and sitting in awkward silence, waiting for people to ask the questions. The other advice I would give there, and Justina sort of mentioned this, which I loved in her talk, is when I ask questions, then that actually, when I see the smartest people I know, ask them those questions. That's how I want to phrase this. It's very much okay not to know the answer to everything. Then the other thing that I will ask myself, what's the most important in the next move? So an example for me was right before I got recruited for Microsoft, I wanted to be more rooted in the Dutch culture. I wanted colleagues and that environment. So it was really valuable to me when I thought about going to work for Microsoft here in the Netherlands and having that community. So some of that might be professional goals, some personal, but to me, it's really important that it all comes together. One note on this, for me, it's pretty easy for me to set aside a couple of hours and just start typing about these questions. What am I good at? What are the themes? What do I want next? If you find that hard, set up time with someone who knows you well, with a friend who might walk you through this, who doesn't understand your career, who will probably help you make connections that your colleague who sees you in a very specific light wouldn't. Set up time with a trusted colleague who knows you and supports you to go through these questions as well. Have them ask them to you, keep each other accountable. I have a teammate who sometimes we'll do this together and we'll put together like a presentation of the answers to these questions. So we keep thinking about this. Now, from that point where you know who you are, you know what you're good at, you've found those themes, you might adjust the way that you communicate them based on the type of move you want to make. So I took a move from technical sales into product engineering. So for me, I thought about basically, it's like, what does this difference between role 1 and role 2 indicate? So when I moved from another industry into tech, I had to talk about the fact that I kind of had always worked in tech, in communications. That was always a part of it. When I moved from more of a business role into an engineering role that's a bit more technical, the way that I talked about those skills was representing some of the things that I would be learning as I move through that journey. Some of the ways that the skills I have from very non-traditional careers, like, for example, even in working in a counseling psychology role, we see a lot of complex situations and we help bring clarity to them. That pretty much defines product engineering, looking at unlimited complexity, finding clarity, and then making sure that we come up with a path forward. So finding ways to communicate what that change is from where you are now to where you want to go in a way that makes sense to the people you're speaking to. If it's a new team at your organization, if it's a new company, talking to people there to understand what words and phrases resonate. And in any of these, I think it's really important to think through how you want to learn and how you want to grow in the new role. And to make sure that the growth required in that new role is what you want, right? So there's certain technical roles that I could do, but I'm not interested in expanding into that product. It wouldn't give me a sense of passion. And I think it's really important to figure out what your next step is in a way that works for you and makes sense. All right. So I'm going to share just some of my top tips that I've learned um, that tend to be things that when I talk to female colleagues and other women in tech and male allies, so we love all of the guys who are here too, grateful for your support of the women in tech community. So some of the tips that I've learned throughout the journey, and similar to what you said, Justina, a lot of this is me talking to myself and reminding myself of what's true, of who I am, and not just comparing myself to everyone else. Because in an industry, I work on the workplace side of all of the technology industry, and it is way higher male than female and way higher than the average numbers within tech. So probably 90% male in the desktop management side. So I'm almost always the only woman in a room. I am, given the fact I'm on the product group, often usually the person who is coming with the expertise in the room. So it's battling with that sort of imposter syndrome is something I really need to be conscious of. And these are some of the things that have helped me. So advice I would give to newer people in tech and advice I give to myself every day as well. My first one is find your people. All parts of the business world can have this environment where one person tries to defeat the others and win. Listen, it's not who I am, and that's not how I want to work. I want to be together with my team. I want to learn from them. I want to celebrate with them. I want to cheer when they get a promotion and I don't, because that's just how I need to work and what I want to do. So really, really encourage you to find your people and help them succeed and learn from them. And it just makes the journey much more fun. Um, Diversity and inclusion is something I am very passionate about, and something that I will always say is worth speaking up for. My guiding principle is to always assume the best, that people have the best intentions, but that we all are going to make mistakes and do things that represent our lack of understanding of someone else's experience. So this is where I try to really take an open mindset and learn from others, and where I try to foster a environment around me or create that environment where sometimes I will tell someone, "Oh, that thing you said, I'm sure you didn't mean anything by it, but I think it created an uncomfortable environment for me or for someone else." That is scary. I've done that in a few circumstances, but it's so worthwhile. And if we have that judgment-free environment where we're all learning and growing, we can really help just really help create an incredible environment to work and live in. This is one of my biggest ones. I see a lot in tech where someone comes in and knows all of the answers to every question and has a, photographic encyclopedic memory of every single setting in the console and every line of code. I always tell people in tech, especially those newer to it, nobody actually knows everything. They just pretend they do and refuse to ask the right questions. So I ask questions. Like I said before, the smartest people, the most senior people at our company ask the most questions. And Multiple times I have seen people with the letters vice president or the words vice president in their title ask questions that I knew the answer to. But that's because they are paid to do something different than I do. They drive strategy, and because they're willing to ask questions, they are they're brave enough and smart enough to drive that well for us. All right, Miriam, I'm going to take 2 more minutes here. I hope that's okay before we go into questions.
Yes, sure. Please, we have
All right.
enough time. Please.
Brilliant. I have to comment quickly on the pictures here. So on the last slide, it was fun pictures from things at work. But then, I haven't been to the office for a year or traveled for work for 2 years. So these are places that I got to work remotely in the last year. So we just have to find the things that we can celebrate there as well. Another really, really good piece of feedback that has absolutely changed my world is asking for good feedback. And it takes some bravery on my part to get off a call and call a colleague and say, hey, how did you think that went? Is there anything I could have done better to make this interaction with a customer better, to make our project better, to make your feature better, to make the program better that you're engineering today? So asking what could be better. And the best question I ever heard was at the Grace Hopper Women in Tech celebration. So there's a lot of research that women don't get very good feedback from their managers because we can assume reasons, but like people are struggle to give women constructive feedback, maybe fearing that they'll hurt their feelings. So if we want good feedback, we need to ask really specific questions. And this is good for anyone. So to say to your manager, hey, if you were to give me a ranking of 10 out of 10, would you give me a perfect 10? And any manager will say, well, no, I mean, you're great, but, and then you have a really good place to go, which is, hey, so what would it take for me to move up a point or 2? What specific changes, actions can I take? So you're really building your own growth. You're figuring out what works best for you, and you're learning how that works within the organization. The next one is growth mindset. We talk about this at Microsoft a lot. I used to always think of it as I'm willing to learn anything, which isn't technically a growth mindset. A growth mindset is more that I'm okay if I fail because it's an opportunity for me to learn more. I don't expect to be perfect. I find that really hard still, but it is the most powerful thing that allows me to keep going if I screw up, if I fail, and move on. 2 great books in the recommendations there that have changed my life and continue to. And then finally, as I wrap up, be yourself. I think there's way too much trying to fit a certain mold of what a person in tech looks like. You were hired for a reason. You bring something unique. I do my job very differently than many of my colleagues, but I've found a way to create impact for our company, for our customers, and for our team by being me. So find what you bring that's unique that no one else can bring, which puts you in an amazing position to add to your company. All right, thanks so much, everyone. I would love to take any questions, as I'm sure Justina would as well.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. An
welcome.
Amazing story, and what an amazing journey you have made in your life. Very inspiring. And I loved, I think, the whole story, and I really liked those questions. And I believe it was on slide 5, especially the question, what do you hate?
Yeah.
And yeah, but because if you ask this question to yourself, then it's immediately clear what you really don't want to do. And also knowing what you're good at immediately gives you a boost in your self-confidence, I believe.
Yeah.
I love that. Amazing tips you gave us, Jennifer, along the way. Thank you so much. Let's move to the Q&A. As I promised in the beginning, do you have any questions for these amazing, beautiful, strong ladies here? Justina and Jennifer, I called them JJ. Please ask them here in the chat box. Let's see. Yeah, awesome presentation, ladies. Yes, we will be sharing the slide deck. Well, actually, we will share the recording afterwards. So, yeah, definitely. Thanks. Thanks for sharing. I think people loved your stories. Thanks a lot for sharing for your insights and journeys. I have to leave. I think people are happy with these tips and stories, I believe.
Thanks, Christopher.
No questions to mention. It was great. Thank you, Christopher, and everyone who is still here. I think no more questions.
I'm going to ask the audience a question, and they can respond in the chat. How's that? Can you guys put one thing that you'll take away from this hour, whether from Justina or me? What's one thing that you're going to take away and think about? That's helpful for I think all of us to see what everyone is going to walk away with this from. Slide number 5. Nice. I just put it together today. I do this quite intuitively in my head, I think. So it was really good for me to write it out.
Nice. Anything else? Yeah, for me also being like an example for your daughter, Justina, as well.
Yeah.
That was really, really nice to hear.
Yeah, like Adriana said, we have choices. That really struck with me from your talk, Justina, as well. Like we have a choice.
And Nick says it was very insightful to be ruthless
and getting feedback. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was really when I worked for a long time as a consultant before, and you kind of almost you don't have to ask for feedback if you're a consultant, because if they hire you again and pay you, then you did a good job. But that's the best thing I learned when I came inside of Microsoft 4 years ago.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you both for the presentation. Thank you for the book recommendation, Jennifer.
Yeah, I think you mean Justina. Justina, do you have any book recommendations? Yeah, do you have any book recommendations?
Justina.
Not really. Really, it was my own experience, so
yeah. Okay.
Not based on books.
I'm a huge reader, so I get inspired by other people's stuff as well. Movie recommendation.
Yeah. Frozen.
Yeah.
Nice.
The first and the second one.
Yeah. Okay, is there any? Yeah. Amazing, ladies. Amazing. So I think no. Nice. Frozen. No, any questions? I think you both have inspired everyone here today. So I'm very grateful for that. Thank you so much. The only thing that I can say is to everyone at home. Before I forget, I'm adding a poll question. Only one question. Will take, I think, 2 seconds to fill in. Please, can you fill this in the chat box for us? Would be really amazing. It rests me to wish you all a wonderful evening, everyone, and hope to have you back at our events next year as well. So,
absolutely.
That's it.
Thank
you, ladies. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you,
Justina.
Mariam and Jennifer.
Have a great evening, everyone.
You're welcome. Everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Bye. Bye.